Really, we have to stop meeting like this. I'm not sure if you guys recall, but in a recent video, I talked about figuring out the secret to winning at poker. In this video, you're gonna find out. Let's go. Had a really fun time this morning, taking my mom out to Land's End. Got some awesome footage for there, which I'm sure to share. You know, got that B-roll. Been taking videos for days. So we'll be sharing that for sure, probably right now. Otherwise, we got some poker action to get to. So the question is, do we first get into talking about the secrets to winning at poker and probably life? I'm gonna think that this is pretty key for winning at life as well. Let's get into that first. Quite some time ago, I read this really interesting article. I think it was in Bluff Magazine, possibly Card Player. This literally must have been like 5 to 8 years ago. I'm not really sure. It was a really long time ago. But anyway, in the article, it was written by a guy who I think was a pro, and he was sharing a story about his friend who I think was just playing recreationally and wanted to learn and wanted to get better. So he kind of reached out to this buddy of his and said that, you know, he wanted some help. So he had a detailed log, I think, of basically his sessions. And it's been a long time since I've read this, so I'm gonna kind of probably butcher it. But the gist of it is, his buddy, the guy that's writing the article, looks over his sessions and notices as he's looking through his log of sessions that a bunch of his winning sessions have the letters RS written next to them. So he's kind of going over the sessions. There was detailed notes about hands, stuff like that. So he gets back to his buddy and he's like, all right, I've got some pointers for you, but I have this one question. I was looking through your log and I noticed that a lot of your sessions have the letters RS next to it, and they're winning ones. What exactly is that? And so his buddy laughs and he's like, yeah, you're gonna think I'm a little silly here, but I've got this lucky red shirt. And so I started, marking down whenever I was wearing this red shirt, this lucky red shirt of mine. And he's like, obviously it's worked out well for me. And so anyway, the poker pro kind of laughs and he's like, buddy, this mindset that you're putting yourself into is really helping, you play better. Just the idea of having this winning mindset, this idea that you yourself are lucky, is helping you win, is making you play better. It's putting you in this positive mindset, which, helps at the poker table. Anybody that's ever played a ton of poker realizes that being confident is half the battle. It sounds ridiculous that, it's a math-based game, there are cards, but there's going to be variance. And more importantly, just being confident at the table to make the right plays and the right moves, it goes a long distance. So anyway, to kind of segue from that, maybe about 2 months ago, possibly longer, I'm not exactly sure, I went to go see the musical Hamilton with my wife, which, by the way, was fantastic. I've seen a bunch of musicals and plays in my life, some of which good, some nothing special. For the most part, whenever someone's told me something is amazing, I've actually been pretty disappointed. So I've heard, obviously, Hamilton was amazing. I think this is kind of another life lesson. For me, whenever something is hyped up, it almost always disappoints. If somebody tells me a movie is fantastic, chances are I'm just going to be disappointed. So I think another key to life is never really having high expectations. I think when you set high expectations for something, things just don't live up to it. So I think it's always better to, hope for the best, but possibly expect the worst, so that, your expectations aren't too high. Anyway, so I went into this kind of having high expectations, and it blew them away. It was just simply fantastic. Literally genius by Lin-Manuel Miranda. The writing, just the emotion. I think I felt like every emotion possible as a human being while watching this. Happiness, sadness, really just everything. It was amazing. So anyway, when we went to go see this play, we decided to be big tourists and check out their shop to pick up some, swag that they're selling, aka overpriced t-shirts, hats, hoodies. And so they had these 2 t-shirts that I really liked. They're really like $40 a piece, which sounds obviously ridiculous, but I really liked them. Said, whatever, screw it, I'm gonna buy these 2 t-shirts. I bought these 2 t-shirts, I like them a lot. And I think like the first 2 times I wore them to play poker, I'd won. And I don't even know if this has anything to do with like the red shirt concept or how I kind of thought of this, but I kind of told myself, you know what, these are lucky t-shirts. And kind of going forward from there, whenever I wore them, I told myself, these are lucky t-shirts, I'm not going to lose today. I don't have the exact math on it because I'm not a crazy person. I'm not going to mark off my sessions with RS. But I'd say the first 4 times that I wore each t-shirt, so that's 8 times total, I definitely won. So that was like 8 sessions. And then thereafter, I kind of started telling myself, this is a little ridiculous. I've only got 2 t-shirts. I'm going to be doing laundry every 2 weeks. I can only wear them 2 days. So I told myself, you know what, screw this. I'm going to create my own luck. So thereafter, after wearing, each of those shirts like 5 times each, I think, over the course of like a month or something like that, or a month and a half, I started deciding in the morning if I was going to go play. I was like, which other t-shirt in my closet do I love? And it's going to be my new lucky t-shirt. I know this sounds ridiculous and crazy. I'm not a superstitious person, even though obviously it's going to come across as sounding like I'm one. But I do believe in the power of positive thinking. I think that there's a lot to be said of just kind of this concept. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this. There's this book, I think it was called The Secret, but it's just the idea of, willing things into your life, like dream about things and they will come. I don't know how much I believe in this, but nonetheless, I think it can't hurt, right? I think we've all seen the guy at the poker table who's always just miserable, thinks he's the unluckiest human being on the planet, and it just always seems to be that kind of that downtrodden lifestyle follows him, And so I think it can't hurt to think positively, right? Like why go around life just thinking, oh, I'm unlucky, things suck. So anyway, I think it can't hurt. So thereafter, I started just kind of deciding, which t-shirts are my lucky t-shirts. I'm like, I love this t-shirt. Long story long. I don't have the exact numbers once again, but I've got to be somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 20 sessions straight of winning when I've, told myself I'm picking out a lucky t-shirt, which, like I said, was once, basically like the last 8, 9, 10 sessions I've played, I've just decided, all right, let me find my lucky t-shirt in my closet. I haven't done laundry yet, so I haven't been able to get back to the Hamilton t-shirts, but tomorrow we're going to get to do some laundry. So we'll test this theory out. But anyway, this is my secret to poker and to life. Just the idea of positive thinking. Think you're lucky, and I think good things happen. As a result of just thinking positively. It sounds a little crazy. Maybe it's a lot of it crazy, but I think you also have to believe in this. It's not just some idea that you're gonna like pull out a lucky t-shirt and be like, oh, today I'm gonna win. You have to just really deep down believe in your body that you're going to be a winner, you're going to be a crusher. And I think this kind of follows a lot with just the simple concept of, you'll see a guy that wins a tournament and then he kind of goes on a heater thereafter. He starts, I think a lot of that's just confidence. It's this idea that like you won, you realize you can win a tournament, and so you just start kind of playing better as a result. So I think it's a lot of mindset stuff. This stuff is really important, especially in a game that is a ton of, mindset. It's about the positive thinking. It's about taking bad beats and shrugging them off, playing your best. So anyway, to move on from that, let's talk about some hands from today. First of which, today was pretty interesting. It's lots of action again in 3-5. I showed up to play PLO, but I got into an amazing 3-5 no limit game. The PLO looked kind of average, and so I just decided I'd stick out the 3-5 no limit game because it was that good. Ran up a little bit of stack, kind of standard spots. There was, I'm not gonna kind of name the player or any details about him, but they just weren't good. They like bluffing a ton. Then this hand goes down. We're at this point they're actually playing 3-5-10. We're decided to straddle, so the whole table's straddling. So it's great. There's a guy sitting with a 5K stack. There's a multiple 1,000, 2,000. There's a guy with 3,000 stack. People are sitting deep. I think I'm playing about 1,000. So we're playing 3-5-10. Under the gun limps. I pick up aces. I make it 40. And we go, I'm going to mess this up, but it's possibly 5 or 6 ways to a flop, which is Jack 9-6 with 2 hearts. Checks to me. There's only one guy behind me. And I don't have the ace of hearts. There's one player to act. And this is a spot where obviously we could be betting to protect our hand. But at the same time, I think it's a spot where there's a ton of draws. And if I bet and get raised, I'm not entirely sure. This is a spot I'm going to be loving. I'm obviously going to be possibly up against a big hand or a big draw. And I'm going to have to make a tough decision. So I decided to check for pot control, play a smaller pot, kind of maneuver my way through the hand since we are 6 ways. I just like checking here in this specific spot because I think if I do bet, I don't have any relevant blockers to any hands. So someone's gonna be able to put me in a tough spot if they raise. And what am I gonna do? Somebody if I were to c bet half pot or 3/4 pot in this spot and someone raises, I essentially have to fold. And the game's been playing action, so I don't really want to put myself in a tough spot. So I check. The player behind checks. Now the turn is pretty interesting. It's the ace of hearts. So I make top step, but the flush gets there. That goes check, check, and the action player who was in the straddle and had called now leads 40 into, what do we go, 4 ways, into 240. The player right after that player folds, and now it's on me. I decide, despite kind of being in a spot where obviously if someone's going to flush, I'm going to be in a tight position. I don't want to flat, let others possibly with just one hard call. If I raise small here and get re-raised, I can still call, trying to make a boat since we are relatively deep. So I like to make it 140, not too large where if I get jammed on or re-raise huge, it's going to put me in a really bad spot. So I make it 140, knowing that if someone's going to raise, make it 340, I can still call the 200 more in this big pot and try to make a boat. So I make it 140, 3 people fold behind me, and now the player that led the turn, she calls the 100 more. River is an offsuit king, so queen 10 gets there. The hearts miss, and now she bets 100, a little over 100. And I think this is she has about 200 left. Obviously, I can jam for value, but I don't really know what I'm getting value from. I think I'm going to have the best hand here a lot, but as far as jamming for value, I'm not really sure what hands I can get called by that are worse. Under sets, possibly. Maybe it's a good idea to jam for value, but I just don't love the spot. I call, and she ends up saying, good call, I have a 9. And then I show my hand, and then she ends up saying, oh, and a 6. So I don't know if she's trying to claim she had 9-6 and flop bottom 2. She said this once I show the aces, so I don't know if she's just saying that to say that or what exactly. But anyway, so we win this hand. I don't mind the way I played it. Like I said, I think that if I bet flop, I can be put in a really tough spot 6-handed here. So I like the way that I played that. Now we move on to another interesting hand. Cutoff limps. I've got 9s on the button. I make it 40. The blinds all fold, and he calls. He's an older gentleman. I've seen him around the casino. I assume he's relatively tight. He's 70 years old. I haven't seen him play many hands. I just kind of assume he's tight. Flop comes queen 7 deuce rainbow. He checks. I down bet to 35, and he kind of snap calls. The turn. So anyway, this kind of goes with my whole idea of positive thinking, and so I've been doing this a lot, and it's kind of sick how often I've drilled them. I've been just kind of thinking of cards I want to hit, and literally perfect suits, everything. So I kind of start thinking in my mind 9 of hearts, 9 of hearts, 9 of hearts. One time, I drilled the 9 of hearts. He checks, and now I bet 75, and he pretty quickly raises to 225. I'm loving this spot, obviously. He's got about 600 left. So I'm trying to figure out, do I want to just flat if he's got a bluff or a hand like ace queen, to let him continue. But in my mind here, when he raises, I think he's gonna have a big hand. I mean, he's old. I'm typecasting here, but I think that's important to do. We're playing live poker. It's really important to understand your players and to have an idea of appearances. I've played with this guy before, and so generally I think he's got a big hand here. So the question is, I'm in position. Obviously, I can flat and let him barrel off rivers, but if I think he's strong, I don't want bad rivers to come off. So it's queen 9 7 deuce with 2 hearts, right? So obviously this is a spot where I can be double barreling with hearts. So I don't want to flat in position, let a heart come off, let an 8 come off, a king come off. Cards are going to kill action if he does in fact have a hand like queen 9, a set of 7s, a set of deuces, ace queen, and similarly if he himself has queen X of hearts, right? If he has king queen of hearts, queen 10 of hearts, queen jack of hearts, he's just not going to be folding or re-raising this spot. So I decide that his range here is going to be way more value based than it is going to be bluff based, especially given that he's old. I think he's going to have a big hand here. So I kind of make the decision that I don't want a bad card coming off if he does in fact have a set himself, if he has a hand like ace queen. So I like to make it 300 more, and he pretty much snap mucks. He goes, wow, really? And folds. And so I was kind of surprised because I really thought he had a big hand here. It's possible that he has a hand like king queen, king jack, maybe ace queen limping in late position. Sounds crazy, but it looks a lot more like he might have some bluff. And so obviously flatting in position was probably the play here. I still think personally against a specific opponent I like raising. I think he's gonna have a lot of queen X of hearts combos as well as flopped sets here when he's limping late. I think he could have 7s, deuces, and he could be turning some draws. So I like raising to kind of build a pot. I am in position, so I think flatting's fine if you think your opponent is bluffing, and if there's there's a ton of people in this game who I would flat against because I think that they'd be capable of doing this, but because he's an old man, I just kind of decided that he's way more likely to have a big hand. So unfortunately, it looks like I misplayed this one. I think flatting in position would have ended up being more profitable. It's also possible that if he did have some air ball, that he's just giving up on the river once I call his raise. Who knows? I'm never gonna know. And now on to the final hands, which will kind of leave as possible again cliffhanger for some comments. So there's another player who I've played with before who can be pretty tight, but then once he starts losing, the wheels just come off. I'm sure you guys have played with these people before, where guys tight, they get stuck, and then they're just off the hinges. So I've already seen him like open a 75 like under the gun in 3-5-10, which is obviously massive. One time he said he had ace queen, then the very next hand he raises again. So I think shortly again he raises like 60 under the gun. I pick up 2 kings. He's playing about 400 or 500. So I decide I don't want to raise too big. I don't want to lose him. I make it 160. And now the player on the button, a younger guy who I've seen before, I've played with before. I think he's decent. I don't have much of a read on him, but I don't think he's like loose or crazy or anything. He now tries to raise me, to min raise me, which would be to 260. Unfortunately for him, he ends up making it 250. And so at this casino, if you don't raise by literally even by $1 short, so like literally if he raises me by 99 instead of 100, it's a string bet. So he ends up making it 10 short. It's a string bet. It's not a raise. And truth be told, I don't want to get raised here. Like, alarm bells are going off. Like, you got an undergun massive raise, a guy who re-raises him, and now you want to min raise that guy? Like, I can't begin to I mean, I got 2 kings, right? So I've got blockers to a lot of his value hands. Like, what exactly is he doing this with, right? Is he doing this with ace king? I mean, queens? Like, who the hell would like re-min raise queens? Now under the gun kind of puts on a show. He's like trying to figure out what to do. I'm kind of like thinking like, okay, I if he rips it here, like, can I find a fold? It sounds insane. Everybody in this vlog just loves criticizing everybody thinking about folding kings, but this just feels like just a crappy spot, well, with this guy on the button. Anyway, so I want the under the gun the guy flat because I want more money in this pot. Because I do feel like I'm beat. So he calls the 100. I call. So he calls my 100 raise. We go 3 to the flop. for like, what is that, 160, four ways, 480. And the flop ends up coming, it goes check, I check obviously because this guy, wanted to raise me, and I don't want to give him any reason not to bet, like if he has queens or tens, which I don't think he has. He ends up ripping his 250 under the gun, like Sai folds. Now it's on me. I have to call 250 to win like 730, be like 3-1. So it's a spot where I just think that I can never ever fold. Here's my question to you guys. Can you find a fold here if it just feels like this guy just always has aces? Comment in the chat below based on like what I've had to say about this hand. Can you fold kings here, with these great odds? All right, so to continue, obviously on this board, I expect him to maybe even underbet sometimes when he's got aces. So once he jams, I kind of think that there's just no way I can fold. Like, he could be doing this with queens, all of his pairs. I think it's very likely that he has aces. I mean, I really do. I literally say to him, actually, when it's on me, I'm like, hey man, I just want you to know I'm not slow rolling you if I in case have the best hand, but I really believe you have aces. I end up calling, and as soon as I call, he shows me aces. We brick out, he wins that pot. That sucks, obviously. I think this is cooler. I'm playing too short. I can't really be folding in this spot once I make it 160 to fold for 250. But it just blows when you know the guy's got it, It's like when it goes raise, re-raise, and then a re-min raise. People just aren't doing this in these 500 cap games with like anything less than aces, until they do, and then you feel like an idiot. The action player has left at this point. I'm kind of on the verge of like leaving. I'd been up about 1,000 at one point. And at this point, after losing that kings versus aces, I'm up about 500, 550. So I moved to the main game. I kind of decided I'm going to check out and see, how good it is before I decide if I want to leave or not. It looks pretty bad. So I'm literally under the gun my last hand. And actually, the hand before this is kind of interesting. There's a hand where this guy, older gentleman, has like maybe over 2,500 or something like that on the table, 500 cap game. Seems pretty tight. He gets in a spot where he raises the turn where 9-7 is the nuts. Gets called in two spots, one of which is an all-in. On the river, nothing changes. The guy checks, pot's like 400, and this guy says to him, how much you got? Like 900? All right, I'm going to bet 900. And it's just like ridiculous. Like, this guy just always has 9-7. The guy folds. The guy had like a combo draw folds. And he shows 9-7 to win the pot because there was one guy all in. So that's that one hand. Now there's this hand. So my last hand, I have king queen of diamonds under the gun. I make it 20. I get called by this player. He's the first guy to call in like the cutoff or hijack. He's talking about how hot he's running. A small blind and the big blind both call. Flop comes jack deuce with two hearts. Goes check. This is a spot I've recently been underbetting a lot, because I think people in this game are just super fearful. Let me get the garage. So it's a spot where I'm gonna have equity with running straight draws, my two overs, and I just don't think people are gonna raise here a lot without just having a jack. So I bet 20 and 80. The guy who aforementioned had 9-7. He calls, kind of like puts on a show. He calls, and now one of the blinds calls. So obviously I'm not loving the spot. Turns it off suit 10. It goes check. I have a straight draw. I can double barrel here, but I don't want to get raised off of it. So I check. Now this guy checks back. So I'm like, okay, I don't expect someone here to have a jack unless they literally have like deuces full, jack 10, and to be like to slow play it. So I think I'm live. And before the river comes out, this guy with 9-7 says ace. River's an ace. I'm like, okay, weird. And lady checks, and now it's on me, and it's just a weird spot where obviously I should be value betting. I like value betting here, but I decided to check. I don't know why. I had a funny feeling about it. I kind of decided this guy could be bluffing some hands. I think he's going to have either missed hearts here or he's going to have a jack, and he's going to bet it. And I think a lot of times he could have something like ace jack, jack 10. Checking back with ace jack sounds crazy, but there's a lot of goofballs in this casino, especially a guy that could be nitty, and I just feel like this guy might be nitty. So the ace peels off. It goes check, and as I say check, he kind of just is like, kind of throws his hands in the air. He's like, I'm all in for like 2,500. I'm like, what the hell? So lady folds, and I look at him, and I'm just like tanking, and he's like looking at me. He kind of shows the guy behind him his hand. And so the question now is, once again, what in the hell do you do in this spot? This guy had just shown that he's like over shipping with the nuts on the previous hand. Is he doing it again? That seems stupid. But at the same time, like, it's not like any of these players are like balancing their play. You know, it's not like somebody's gonna overbet jam like the nuts, and then later on when they have like a non-nut hand, they're gonna overjam. So the question is, you know, what can you do here? So once again, I'd love to hear what your commentary is, because I think this is a difficult spot. Now on to what I'm, my decision. I think my decision's fairly easy here. I'm just not gonna call like a 5x pot bet. Not even 5x, but like whatever, like a massive. I have 1,000. I'm just not calling this massive over bet. He's betting 1,140. I'm just never ever calling here with a straight. But what I do think is interesting here is, more importantly, what is the minimum hand we call with once it plays this way? I think if I have a full house, I just bet river myself. Assuming we have something like deuces, I'd probably double barrel. If I have tens, obviously I bet flop, as I did. I'd probably double barrel turn. But I mean, against this player, I think I'm just folding a large part of my range. I don't know. When I was tanking, he kind of laughs and he's like, "Jacks are no good," or something like that. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And so I show a queen and he's like, "Oh, what do you got?" And then I'm like, "Well, I have king, queen." And so he's just kind of putting on this show, being loud, and I just don't think there's any way he's bluffing. So I kind of show the queen muck, and I helicopter muck the king. And some other guy at the table is just like, "Yeah, he's running hot." And he's just like, "What, you folded?" I just had trips. And then he ends up saying something about how he had a full house. So there's no way I believe that I folded the best hand. But I think what's more important is what is the minimum I call here with? I don't think I'm calling with deuces for 1,000 into a 140 or whatever the hell it is. Can I fold Jack 10? I think that might be the cutoff. I can't fold ace jack. I have to assume this guy's always 3-betting me with aces. So I'm obviously not folding aces full. I think I'm obviously calling with aces, ace jack. If I have Jack 10, I think I might even find a fold with Jack 10 against a specific player. He literally just ripped the nuts previously with the 9-7 over bet pot, and he's doing it again. I just think that people like to do these goofy things multiple times. They like to be like, "Oh, I overbet once, I'm going to do it again, and people aren't going to believe I have the nuts again," and they have the nuts again, big surprise. So anyway, that's that. Those are the hands. Kind of, once again, another slightly frustrating session because I was up. We'll call it the upstuck sessions. But obviously it feels great again to, book another win. I won 400. So we're on that actually, I can't even say on that upswing. That lucky t-shirt straight upswing. Let me know what you guys think of this crazy concept. But don't knock it till you try it. I think there's gonna be those skeptics that are gonna laugh, but obviously it's never gonna work for them because they don't believe in that kind of stuff. I think it's kind of like a placebo. You tell somebody they're taking some drug and it's gonna help them and it actually makes them feel better. I think the lucky t-shirt is just a similar placebo concept. All right, well, thanks for chiming in and checking out the vlog. I appreciate it. I hope you guys are enjoying these, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.